Good morning, everyone. This is update for July 5, 2022, day 132 of the war, end of the date update. So let's just look at the general and strategic situation. So there are several new lines of tension or areas of tension appearing. So first one is Russia is blocking export of crude oil from Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan is relatively, not small producer of crude oil in general. So it's exporting about 67 or 69 million tons per year of crude oil. So the way it's done, so they extract the crude oil in this, in Western Kazakhstan, and then it goes, through the pipeline, and then it's being shipped to cargo ships here in Russian port Novorossiysk. And so Russia decided to stop export of crude oil for 30 days from Kazakhstan. The reason for that is because Kazakhstan leadership is behaving somewhat independently, not the way the Russian leadership wants them to act, and so that's a sign, hey, you need to follow what we say, or we're gonna block export of crude oil, and which is probably largest income producer, source of income in Kazakhstan. So that's really creating a lot of pain in the country for sure. Then in other news, Russia and Norway are clashing over this island called Spitsbergen. So formerly it belongs to Norway, and it was, I guess, returned to Norway in 1920 by the Soviet Union. However, Russia keeps right to extract resources from this island, and so it has some, I think, extractive mines there. I'm not sure exactly what sort of resources being extracted, but nevertheless, Russia has some economic interest there. And now Norway is blocking supplies essentially to those mines on Spitsbergen, and that creates a lot of tension with Russia. And specifically, Russia conceded this green area to Norway in 2010 as compromise to have the state boundary between the two countries, because Russia wanted to exploit oil and gas resources in this area, so it needed peace and this clarity on the border. So, and there was a dispute between the two countries, and so finally Russia decided, okay, we're willing to return this blue area, and so we can exploit those oil and gas resources that are nearby. So now, as a result, Russia is claiming that they're gonna revoke that agreement, and they will demand this area back as a result of the blockage of Spitsbergen by Norway. So again, another line of tension. Remains to be seen where it all goes. Then in other news, real estate prices, specifically for apartments, which is the main type of real estate, residential real estate in Russia, then dropped, and specifically in Moscow, they dropped to 2.2% in June, which is probably a relatively large drop for just single months, and given that Russia is where all of the Russian, or not all of them, but majority of the Russian financial resources are concentrated, as the country is very centralized. So most of the resources and most of the money and finances are concentrated in Moscow, with a little bit in St. Petersburg, and then even less in Yekaterinburg. But essentially, Moscow is kind of like a hub to the wheel, and where everything goes in terms of resources, specifically financial resources. At the same time, Russian government decided to reduce interest rates for the mortgages to purchase apartments and just general residential residential homes, and so as a result, there is increase in the number of mortgages that's being taken by the Russian citizens, and drop is not going to the pre-war numbers, but there is significant jump, about 60% relative to the May number, which was really low. So the Russian government is trying to revive economy, and specifically trying to keep construction industry going, as it's a very large employer and it generates a lot of revenue, and it actually there is a big multiplier effect on the rest of the economy. So they're trying to stabilize economy in that way overall. Okay, now let's jump to the front line. Let's talk a little bit about Ukraine and internal situation in Ukraine before we're gonna look at the front line. So what's been going on in Ukraine today? There was a sort of first time when there was a sort of rift between the president and general staff, Ukrainian army general staff, where Ukrainian army general staff issued order that required all men to receive sort of permit to leave their towns or their regions, which created a lot of outcry in Ukraine that this is really policies that has no common sense. It just literally creates problems, even if there people moving for work or whatever. Just there are a lot of refugees in the country, so it's really creating tons of problems and just practically not implementable. So after the public outcry, Ukrainian president announced that, asked politely that in the future he needs to be consulted before such decisions are made by the Ukrainian general staff, and there will be discussion tomorrow of the reasons for this action. So this was first public kind of spat, even if it's very polite. It was extremely polite, but nevertheless there is a clear line that start to emerge between the president and Ukrainian general staff. There is also another sort of force that's behind it, is because the head of Ukrainian general staff got more popular during the war, and and Ukrainian president sees that as a rivalry to his personal sort of political situation. So that's another sort of reason behind this as well. Now let's move to actually Frontline. Let's see what's going on. We're gonna do it in a clockwise fashion, starting from the very north. There is exchange of artillery fire all over along the border, and just sort of anecdotally, it looks like the intensity has increased generally. We're not able to quantify it, but it definitely feels that there is more intensity of the fire along the border. Now let's move to Kharkiv front line. Let's see what's going on there. Situation here is more or less the same. Russian troops tried to attack towards in this kind of like let's call it western direction, trying to increase the buffer around this, specifically this village Kazachya Lopan, which is essentially center in this area. It's one of the most important sort of cornerstones of the Russian defenses here that they hold, that they determined to hold, because Ukrainian troops tried to attack it in the past about 2 months or 3 months ago, and they failed. And Russia is definitely determined to sort of keep this village, and so they tried to sort of expand towards west, but they were not successful. Now let's move south. Let's see what's going on the Izyum bridgehead. Here, our typical sort of situation where Russian troops are attacking towards these villages Krasnopilya and Dolina. We showed that village Maryinka that was captured, and then it essentially flows into Krasnopilya. So again, Russian troops continuing attack in the same area. Everything is extremely sort of predictable right now, but have no success so far. Now let's move to the Lysychansk area, and let's see what's going on there. So actually, we would like to a little bit correct ourselves. We during the initial Ukrainian retreat from this whole Lysychansk area, there was quite a bit of disarray, and we felt that Ukrainian troops retreated more than that they actually did. So they actually control. There's a small village here called Grygorivka, which they do control, and so the front line is actually a little bit sort of more closer to the west. And then in addition, Ukrainian troops control this village Verkhyokamyanske for the most part. Maybe sort of eastern outskirts are controlled by Russian troops, but majority of the village is controlled by Ukrainian troops so far. So we corrected a little bit this front line here a little bit towards east. It's nothing major, nothing significant, but we wanted to correct our error that we made a couple days ago. Now we would like to mention that Russian troops made some progress. They attacked towards this village Spirne, which they've been attacking for quite a while, and they gained some ground here, and essentially the fighting is going on the outskirts of this village. Russian sources claim that they actually captured village. We don't have that independent confirmation, so for now we believe that the sort of fighting is still going on either in the village or on their sort of northern and eastern outskirts of the village. But in any case, Russian troops clearly gained some ground in this area. Another place where the Russian troops continued attacks is this village Belogorivka, which has been attacked so long. Nevertheless, Russian troops trying to continue attacks in this area, even though they so far they have been unsuccessful for many days, and this attack was not successful either. Now let's move south. Let's look at the southern section of this whole area. So then another area where the Russian troops trying to make progress is here. They're attacking to capture village Vershina in this area. So it's obviously executed by Wagner mercenaries, which operate in all of this area. And then another Russian troops from the 1st Army Corps, they attacking towards village Novoluhanske. Both attacks were not successful. Nevertheless, they continue trying. And as we discussed before, they were trying here from Klinove towards sort of west. It didn't work out. They trying this Vershina. So basically, they probing defenses in attempt to find the weaker spots, and then obviously they're gonna hammer in those weaker spots and try to breach the defenses there. So that's sort of general strategy there. Now let's move south. Let's see what's going on west of Donetsk. Here is everything is well, not really quiet, but everything here is all about the exchange of artillery fire at this point. Otherwise, there's just reconnaissance and probing actions. Nothing really major going on here. Now let's jump quickly to Zaporizhia front line, and situation again the same here. It's just exchange of artillery fire, probing actions, nothing really nothing major basically here. Let's jump quickly to Kherson bridgehead, and situation is exactly the same as we discussed in Zaporizhia front line west of Donetsk. It's basically defensive operations, probing actions, artillery fire. That's essentially essence of all of the action right now here. We think in general it will be just relatively quiet time, as we discussed yesterday, while the Russian troops are regrouping to launch like more large-scale attacks. Because let's actually go back. The plan is obviously to squeeze Ukrainian troops from all of this Donetsk region, right? So, like, let's just look at the sort of plans. What are the immediate plans by the Russian side? An immediate plan is to squeeze Ukrainian troops from Donetsk region, which Ukrainian side still holds quite a bit of, probably more or less 50% roughly. So the goal is immediate goal is to squeeze out Ukrainian troops from here. This this remains to be seen if it's going to be possible, because there's good defensive positions here around Kramatorsk, Slovyansk. And then here the front line is also not breached west of Donetsk, so that probably may take quite some time to exploit. Other important Russian goals after, let's say, this has been accomplished would be Zaporizhia, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhia is extremely close, low-hanging fruit from a perspective of the Russian side, especially since defensive forces here are relatively weaker than everywhere else. And then another sort of goal is obviously Mykolaiv and Kryvyi. So those are sort of next important goals. And then if those goals are accomplished, then the sort of next sort of wave of the goals is Odessa, obviously, and then Dnipro, right? So those they're sort of like on a to-do list, basically, for the Russian side for now. And then obviously they're going to see, depending on how situation develops, they may try to exploit more and capture the sort of the rest of the country, or it really depends on their sort of balance of power at that time. Okay, thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye-bye.